While the post-humans often overshadowed the rest, there were countless forms of intelligent life in their empire. Among them were a number of animals that had been uplifted to the point of sentience. Most had been elevated individually as an experiment or to achieve a specific goal, such as Shelly Olka, an uplifted parrot who used her sophisticated vocal cords to become a galactically renowned singer-songwriter. However, the most widely known uplifted species were, of course, the Cuttlemen. Having been uplifted long ago, they multiplied quickly and were eventually able to create a self-sustaining population independent of the post-humans. Eventually, they decided to go out on their own. Having already been adapted for the arid climate of Maya, these Cuttlemen actively searched for dry desert planets, despite their aquatic ancestry. They eventually found Burson, a large planet sporting vast landscapes of sun-baked clay, and a single continent-sized ocean. The planet's two suns made it unbearably hot for all but the most resilient of inhabitants, which the Cuttlemen quickly became. They modified their legs into robust, spring-powered limbs that allowed them to leap at blinding speeds while still conserving energy, and their arms into a radial ring of tentacles that shaded their bodies from the twin suns. This group was dubbed the Spring Feet, and from the surface their architecture looked incredibly simplistic, small, single-room buildings dotted across the horizon. But underground they splintered off into complex tunnels and interconnected living spaces that sheltered the Spring Feet against their harsh sun. It wasn't long before they found the vast cave systems deep beneath the planet's surface, home to an entire ecosystem of alien plant life. In the end, many Spring Feet decided to forego the surface and adapt themselves fully for life in the caves, becoming the Spelunapes, creatures with large muscular arms used to cling to the sides of stone walls. There were many other Cuttlemen descendants as well, such as the Shivermen, who were modified for the harsh cold of their tundra home, or the Weavers, aquatic eel-like creatures with a mouthful of dexterous tongues that allowed them to interact with their surroundings. But for our purposes today, let's focus on one specific group. The Rain Towers are direct descendants of the Spring Feet, modified for the planet Ashona, a world whose largest and most densely populated continent was encapsulated by a massive alien rainforest. Due to this, the vast majority of Rain Towers were adapted for life in their fog-filled cities, with long tentacles that hung low to the ground and sensitive eyes at the end of their stalks. Thanks in large part to Ashona's relatively tame climate, especially when compared to the other Cuttlemen homeworlds, its population skyrocketed, with Gwynnota, the planet's largest city, becoming the unofficial capital of Cuttlemen society. Their most important discovery, however, was made by their space program. While searching for more planets, a team of Rain Tower drones stumbled upon a small planet, whose atmosphere was permanently veiled by a layer of gray smog. They quickly found that this planet was already inhabited by a group of deer-like creatures that didn't resemble any known post-human or Cuttlemen species. Upon closer inspection, the Rain Towers discovered that the Tanu were an entirely alien group, the first non-Earthling intelligence to ever be found, and a species faced with imminent extinction as their planet's mantle grew exponentially more hostile. In a bid to save this unique form of alien life, the Rain Towers made themselves known to the Tanu, speaking to them through holographic writing, as the Tanu's written language was easier to comprehend than its verbal counterpart. Over the span of many years, the Rain Towers successfully transported the vast majority of Tanu to Ashona, giving them several surgeries so they could breathe the planet's atmosphere, similar to the filters on Frill people. Those who rejected these procedures were given portable breathing apparatuses instead. While the Tanu were obviously enamored by the technological prowess of their saviors, adapting to their new home was far from easy. By this point, Ashona had become a bustling urban planet, a far cry from the quiet, empty villages the Tanu were used to. And it was more than a case of culture shock. Having evolved from plain-dwelling herbivores, the Tanu were terrified of the crowded, claustrophobic cityscapes of Ashona. And so, over time, the Tanu moved to other, more sparsely populated planets. To make this possible, the post-humans taught their new friends how to use biotech and genetic modification, giving rise to several Tanuan offshoots, such as the Wooloo, a fur-coated descendant modified for the frigid environments of Picus. More interesting, however, was the Tanuan response to uplifting technology. You see, the vast majority of Tanu were raised in large part by the Kellicule, a species of livestock that was specifically domesticated to raise children. This gave their culture a unique outlook on life of all forms, where even the demonstrably less intelligent were seen as equal. So while the post-humans were frugal with their uplifting, the Tanu were anything but, and in just a few short years, once desolate planets became thriving hubs of countless intersecting cultures, such as uplifted dogs and other canoid species like the Zeus, who traveled in large nomadic groups in search of excitement on their quiet homeworlds. Or the dolphins and other marine life, who somewhat surprisingly became highly skilled pilots, with their three-dimensional thinking being put to great use in the sky. And of course, the Kelicule and countless other Sedown creatures were uplifted as well. This obviously resulted in overpopulation as more creatures were granted personhood, which itself resulted in more Tennu leaving these planets in search of new, sparsely populated ones. The Tennu quickly became forerunners in intergalactic travel, often outcompeting the Jupitorans and New Europans with their space program. But of course, this surge in sentient diversity would inevitably lead to terrible issues down the line, as the bruised egos of extremist Martians and avians boiled over once again.